Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Sports Department Podcast. It is time for some NBA talk. We have not done this in a long time, Jesse, and we have a new face on the podcast, our good friend, Chris Douglas. He is a Knicks sufferer just like myself. He is one of our very good friends for a very long time, and we are very happy to have him on the podcast. But, Jesse, like I said, we haven't talked NBA in a while. We're a couple weeks in now. Got a couple surprising teams, couple teams underperforming, couple players underperforming. So we have a lot to get to, and we're going to get through it all. But first off, how you guys doing?
I'm doing good. I'm always excited to talk to my good friend Chris Douglas. Very happy to have him on the pod. Very excited to talk about some NBA because it has been a very, very long time.
Hell yeah, that's right. Thank you guys for having me so much. Excited to talk about this NBA season because it started out really hot. I really like how this season's going so far.
Chris, I heard you are traveling to Indianapolis for the game tomorrow night with the Jets. I know you're a big Mike White guy now. So
listen, in Mike White we trust. I will not be at the game. The schedule is absolutely clear for the game, though. I will be tuned in and locked in.
See if his Jets.
If Mike White has another good week, do you put Wilson back in?
I think you milk the Wilson injury as long as you can. Just, continue to say, okay, now he's hurt. Like, maybe put him on the IR, throw him on 3-week IR.
Oof. We will see if they can perform better than his Mets did towards the end of the season. But enough smack talk here between us,
Taking
Chris.
jabs.
Let's get right into the NBA here. So just looking over the standings real quick, Miami is leading the East at 6-1, followed by the Sixers and the Bulls, both at 6-2. Looking at the West, no surprise, Utah always a great regular season team at 6-1, followed by the Warriors at 5-1. The Lakers at 5-3. Some surprises so far we see in the East. Boston is 3-5. Milwaukee is 4-4. The Nets 4-3. They're getting back to their winning ways, though. Jesse
5-3.
5-3. Excuse me. ESPN has not updated their standings. And then you have a team like the New Orleans Pelicans sitting at 1-7. So just right from the jump, what's a team that is very underwhelming so far that you thought would have started off better?
I mean, in my opinion, it's got to be Boston. Looking at that team, you have two guys who are, supposed to be built for the regular season, and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Whether how far you think they can get you in the playoffs or not, that's a different discussion. But they should be winning regular season games. You have to worry about the long-term effects COVID's going to have on Tatum's body because he still continues to bring it up about the effects that it has, about how he still can't play many minutes at a long stretch without getting fatigued. And Jaylen Brown has tried to really step up. But you've seen Marcus Smart called these guys out, saying they needed to learn how to pass in certain situations. They have a new coach coming in. There was obviously the problems in the offseason with Brad Stevens allegedly wanting to step away. They didn't want to lose him, so they offered him a promotion where he could kind of step away from the floor. And then, they lost Kemba, they brought Schroeder in, and then obviously you're wondering about that fit. So Boston just had a lot of pieces moving that I think a lot of us thought, well, they have Jason Tatum, they have Jaylen Brown, they'll be fine. When in reality, we're giving those guys a little bit too much credit where they're still really young. So they kind of are going through a progressive moving forward team. And we need to kind of realize they're not the Brad Stevens Celtics anymore. This is probably going to be a team that's going to need to feel out what they are. And we might be 20 games into the season and they might be sitting at 8-12 or maybe even 7-13. And they might be putting up good individual numbers, but I don't know how good this team is actually going to be.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, Jesse, about the Celtics. I mean, they're really in a bad spot, especially with Marcus Smart calling out the team. That's just not a good look. Less than 10 games into the season. The team I want to point out is the Cavaliers. I thought that they'd be a little bit challenging for teams to defend with 7-footers everywhere, length everywhere, and young guys taking the next step. You have Colin Sexton, who is really instant offense at any time. And I like their move to get Lauri Markkanen. I really thought that they would be a more impressive team thus far. Even though they're over 500, it's a decent look for them so far. But I feel like this is a team that's going to squeak into the playoffs. Meanwhile, the Celtics, I think they're headed for the lottery for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree with both of you. I read a report today that the Celtics apparently had a players-only meeting, so hopefully they get some chemistry issues worked out there. I'm going to go with a team that made it to the chip last year with the Phoenix Suns, sitting at 3-3 on the season. The losses they've had have been ugly. They lost to the Kings. They lost to the Trailblazers by almost 30. They lost to the Nuggets on opening night, and the two teams they beat were the three teams they beat were the Lakers, Cavaliers, and Pelicans. Three teams that are not the best. So definitely a little bit of a scary start for the Suns. But again, it's so early to judge any of these teams so far. But and then again, like you have a team like the Bucks sitting at 4-4 who came out on opening night and looked really good against the Brooklyn Nets. So it's
immediately got hit with the injury bug and COVID protocols. I mean, I think legitimately right now, Grayson Allen, I think, is like their second best player.
That's so bad.
That's a bad look.
It is. It's horrible. That's horrible. The Bucks are having a real championship hangover.
And I don't think we're gonna see. We really expected them to come back and win it all again, did we?
No, I think everybody, when Milwaukee won, everybody was in. Come on, we all were in agreement. It took Kyrie Irving going down. It took Harden having one hamstring. And then even the Hawks series, you could argue that if they play Philly, they have a much harder way to get to the championship. Last year, the way the Eastern Conference shook out was devastating, to say the least. So, I mean, I don't think anybody really thinks Milwaukee's going back. And I mean, we'll see. Their biggest thing all of last year through the playoffs, through the regular season, was their guys played a lot of minutes together. They didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. They did not get hurt. We'll see how that goes now, because as you can see, Chris Middleton's already been out for, I think, 9 days, or he should be able to come back soon. But Drew Holiday's got banged up, I believe, in the original opening game and hasn't really been able to make an impact yet.
And PJ Tucker switching from one Eastern Conference powerhouse to another. Now he's on the Heat. I feel like PJ Tucker was an integral part of the championship run.
If PJ Tucker was not on the Bucks last year, they don't get past the Nets. Even with all the injuries, I don't think there's a question about it.
I think it's the shoe. It has to be the shoe collection, right, Douglas?
It's the hard-nosed defense. Bologna, you know how to get me off guard, man. Nah, he's got an incredible shoe collection. We can talk about that another time. His defensive versatility is insane.
Agreed. Now let's flip the script here. We're going to go from disappointing to impressive, and I'm going to start off with this one. And I'm going with a team that was surrounded by drama the entire offseason with one of their star players, with Ben Simmons. And just an update on that, he did eventually report to the team, and then it didn't go well from that start, getting thrown out very early on in the first practice, saying he's mentally not ready to play yet. But the 76ers somehow still 6-2 to start the season. So props to Doc Rivers for kicking his team into gear and getting them off strong. I'm impressed.
Yeah, they just won a good game against the Bulls. That was pretty tight. Really interesting game because they weren't even playing with Tobias Harris, who I hope is okay. He has COVID. And Doc Rivers said he is not doing great. He said some guys get it and they're fine. Tobias is not. So I really hope he recovers from that and is okay. We still have to see how this Ben Simmons situation shakes out.
Yeah.
But they have been playing good. I think every time I watch them play, it really just makes me laugh when I think about the Dallas Mavericks trading Seth Curry straight up for Josh Richardson. Because, oh my God, Seth Curry, like, legitimately is a top 5 shooter in the NBA that nobody talks about. I think legitimately he could shoot 50% from 3 if he tried hard enough. I'm talking like Joe Harris level sniper, but better overall player because he's got handle. He can somewhat defend. They have a really good structure there. And you really have to see how that Simmons situation plays out. But they have every reason to be playing bad, and yet they're still pulling together and performing. So you gotta give them a round of applause.
Yeah, Andre Drummond provided some good spark there with in the rebounding game, averaging 10 a game. But Jesse, I know you are very high on him, and this is Tyrese Maxey averaging 14 a game in only his second year, and that's impressive that they got him in the 20s of the draft.
Yeah, 20 something like that. He fell, but he's a player that as soon as you saw him in the regular season and playoffs, even with the minutes restrictions and the leash that Doc puts on rookies, as soon as I saw him in the playoffs, I thought that makes Ben Simmons expendable. That can be your point guard of the future. He can play with Embiid. He's growing into himself at this super young age. And maybe, you should bring in a veteran guy to help him as well. But he now makes Ben expendable. If Ben's not going to learn how to shoot and Ben's not going to learn how to be as effective as he possibly can be, specifically from the point guard position and not the power forward position, then you need him to commit to becoming a better point guard, because Tyrese Maxey is capable of doing all the things that an elite level point guard can do.
Douglas, what are you thinking?
That's definitely right. That's a great point about Maxey, Jesse, because he's, like you said, someone who can really stretch the floor, and that's their biggest weakness that they encounter when Simmons is on the floor. As far as a prediction with that situation, I don't think Ben Simmons is going to obviously be on that team. He's never going to suit up ever again. We'll see what they can get for him. Trading a disgruntled star is extremely difficult, and I bet they're kicking themselves for not doing what Brooklyn did and getting Harden when they could have. I want to give you guys my surprise team, though. Major offseason upgrade for the Chicago Bulls to get Lonzo Ball, DeMar DeRozan. And last year, I was a huge, huge critic of when they traded for Nikola Vucevic. I'm like, what is going on? You're not making the playoffs. You're not making any noise right now. I look like a fool. Their team is very well-rounded. They're going to be able to keep this up for a majority of the season. I think we're looking at a top 4 seed with Chicago. I really love what they did in the offseason and how they've started the season, just top to bottom as a full team.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Chicago, they flipped almost their full team. And that deal with the Magic now looks like a win-win situation when you look at what Wendell Carter's able to give the Magic, and now you look at what Vucevic is able to give Chicago. So that trade definitely works out. Chicago's been a really good team. They've really stepped it up on the defensive end. And once their offense catches up, which it eventually will, that's a tough out in the Eastern Conference for sure. That's most likely a second-round team. As far as my most surprising team, I have 2 to 3 that I think are pretty surprising. First, the Miami Heat. I just simply didn't think Kyle Lowry could change a culture just the way that he did. They play entirely different than they did last year. Last year, they were a methodical half-court offense. They were just trying to break you down, these long 16, 17-second possessions. If you watch the Heat now, they play with this incredible pace where they just turn their defense so quickly into offense. And it stems almost entirely from Kyle Lowry and the way he has really pushed this ball movement and this getting out and running. It's really something that Philadelphia should look at and be like, wow, I can't believe we didn't get that guy, because he would have totally revitalized my team. And then going off something Douglas said, going with the Cavaliers, who have been disappointing, I think it shows you don't win with young guys in this league. There's one team that's winning with young guys, and that's Memphis. That's it. That's my other surprising team. They continue to win with Desmond Bane, John Morant, these guys Jared Jackson, like, young players don't win in the NBA. You can be so talented. Houston Rockets have a ton of young talent. The Pelicans, ton of young talent. It doesn't record wins, but somehow with the Grizzlies, it does. They just translate into wins. I think it's going to be really interesting to look at the Grizzlies now and last year, and then see how they develop, 2-3 years down the line, because we're waiting for all these other young teams to finally be able to, the Pelicans. Oh, when are they going to make the play in? When is Zion going to be in the playoffs? When are these young teams going to step up? The Grizzlies have already done it, and they consistently keep doing it. And I wonder, is their ceiling, are they going to be closer to a Utah Jazz where they're a really good regular season team, but they actually can't go deep into the playoffs? Or are they going to be a really good young team like Denver, who continuously tries to get better and continues to push deeper and deeper into the playoffs? I think Memphis is going to be a really interesting team to watch this year and moving forward over the next couple of years.
I want to talk about with Douglas's point in the Bulls. I mean, the Bulls did something that we see a lot of teams attempt to do but are not successful, and that's make your star happy. And that's what they've done with Zach LaVine. I mean, he was miserable in Chicago and with Jim Boylan. And, like Douglas said, they go out, they get DeRozan, they traded for Vucevic, they sign Alex Caruso, Lonzo Ball. And then you look at their depth, and I mean, Kobe White, he's a very good spark plug off the bench. And then they have 4th overall pick from last year, Patrick Williams, who is it a reach? Maybe
he's done for the year now. Is
he really?
I think so. His wrist. Oof. That was tough.
That does hurt, but and they bring in Billy Donovan to be head coach. But props to the Bulls for building around their star and building something special. I do think they're going to see the playoffs this year. Don't think they can win it all. I don't think they have the pieces, but definitely a start. Definitely they're heading in the right direction. So it's
Don't forget about the Warriors. Klay Thompson's coming back.
I was thinking that as well. 5-1 on the year. Draymond playing out of his mind.
Yeah,
Jordan
they're
Poole
back.
Also. Jordan Poole's playing pretty good too. As a very good secondary playmaker, scorer. That Wiseman pick, man, that really does look bad in retrospect because you can't get anywhere close to what you could have gotten for the number 2 pick at that time. Or imagine if they actually drafted LaMelo.
When they told him they were going to draft.
Told him they were going to draft him.
When is Klay due back? All-Star break?
I don't even know. I don't think they gave a timetable.
They're talking about possibly January, I guess. Every time I see him on social media, he's working out. He looks fine, but I guess you got to take your time with that type of thing. It's been so long since he played, and I just think last year is an anomaly for the Warriors.
What, the 19 finals he played? That was the last time, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Ugh.
Tore his ACL, and then while recovering, tore his Achilles.
Ridiculous. But the Warriors, they unfortunately seem like they are back to their winning ways. Now it's time to get Douglas a little riled up here. The New York Knicks.
Oh man, here we go.
Start the year 5-1. They fall to the Raptors and the Pacers in back-to-back games, sitting at 5-3. Douglas, I mean, Kemba Walker looks confident. He looks healthy so far. I mean, he's going to be getting his rest days, as Jesse likes to tell me. Evan Fournier, their big $78 million man, and Julius Randle keeps putting money in Jesse's pocket. So overall, a nice start to the season for the Knicks. What are your thoughts so far, Chris?
All right, so I was very pleased with the start to the season for the New York Knicks, and these past 2 games where they didn't really look very competitive at all versus some lower half of the East teams. It's expected, in my opinion, because they've turned into a team that's heavily reliant on the 3-point ball.
Big time.
And so you add Fournier, you add Kemba. Now you're talking about a team who's going to be volume shooting threes. Like I think they're still top 5 in the league in attempts. I know they were leading the league about a few days ago in attempts and makes. So talk about an entire shift of their offense. I mean, last year it was really dependent on Randall getting to the basket, creating for someone else, a lot of buckets down low. Now we're talking about a team who's at the top of the league and shooting threes. So I don't know what got into Tibbs. I didn't think that was Tibbs' style, but I'm digging it. You know me, I like the 3 ball. So it's the way that the league is going, and you still have the amazing firepower off the bench. I love the fact that the bench is like another unit, and that the fact that Nerlens Noel is back is also going to be huge. Because I love Mitchell Robinson. He hasn't gotten any better since he got into the league. He's been the same player, which is fine. He's a solid player. But Nerlens Noel gives you just the same amount of defensive versatility that Mitch gives you when Mitch is in the game. I really like Noel's minutes, and I just, anything to get Taj Gibson off the floor. Anything. Anything. I can't watch that guy.
No. And one player who's really coming into his own now is RJ Barrett. I mean, offensively, defensively, the kid has really come into his own. And it's great to see. But like you said, Chris, I mean, with the Knicks last year, I mean, especially in the playoffs, it was just Randall putting up 30 shots a game, making 9-10 of them. So it's nice that they do have some help for him, and Obi Toppin is starting to look a little bit better. I do want to see a little bit more consistency from Emmanuel quickly. He's kind of fallen under now with Kemba as the starting point guard and Rose as the number 2. But overall, I think we do still see a Knicks team in the playoffs this season. Hopefully, not a play-in or anything, probably over a 6 seed. But it's a promising start for the Knicks. You look at like a guy like Kevin Knox. I mean, he's not even playing anymore. I don't even know why he's on the bench.
Yeah, that's another one that they can't get rid of soon enough. Like I hate the sight of him on the bench, like you said. It's a good point you make about quickly. I'd hate to see that guy take a step back. He was so good in his rookie season. But when you add veterans that are going to take shots and take playing time, it is going to get really difficult for him to find his way a little bit. Obi Toppin has looked amazing as well. I was wrong on that pick. And when RJ Barrett got drafted, I was wrong about him. RJ has done nothing but get better since he was in the league, man. Yeah. He's done nothing but get better. And I love the player he's turned into. And I think he's got an even higher ceiling than what he's at right now. The hitting the threes at like a 50% clip. Right now, I think for the season, it's 42%. But the past few games, he's over 50% hitting threes. That's something I would have never, ever expected him to be doing at the NBA level when I was watching him in college. So kudos to both of them for proving me wrong. The last 2 first-round picks there.
Jesse, any thoughts on your favorite team?
Hey, Douglas, you're totally valid in not trusting any of the New York Knicks draft picks after Frank Ntilikina, Kevin Knox.
My guy Frank is balling down south. Give him his credit.
It's ridiculous.
But yeah, the Knicks are liable to mess it up. You're right, Jesse.
I really wish, they re-signed Reggie Bullock with the high volume threes that they're taking. I really felt like he would have fit this team better than he even fit the team last year.
I think Burke steps in nice though. Burke steps in.
He does. Oh, for sure. But I think using Burks as a secondary ball handler, shot creator kind of thing, and then having Bullock as a glue guy could have, really helped, because Bullock is a great shooter. And I felt like he was the guy who always hit the really big shot for them last year. So, I just wish that if they knew this 3-point revolution was kind of going on, that they would have kept him. But this is what happens when a team lives by the 3, dies by the 3. You win games and you're going to shoot yourself out of games. But most of the time, if you're a good enough 3-point shooting team, you will make the playoffs. That's where the game is heading.
Yeah. Knicks have a tough opponent coming up Friday against Milwaukee, primetime on ESPN. So a little scary them losing 2 in a row. But again, it's early in the season and they definitely look improved from last season, which is nice to see. Now, Jesse, we'll flip over to you. You used your political power to get Eric Adams into office for New York City mayor and
exercise that right.
The Nets, another team with controversy with Kyrie Irving not playing, and Eric Adams coming in saying he wants to come in and change some mandates. So, Kyrie might be coming back in January. Not exactly sure. Steve Nash said today he would welcome Kyrie with open arms. But the Nets are ultimately 5-3, starting to get back into the winning ways after a slow start. Jesse, your thoughts so far in the year?
I mean, this is a team that is working so many new guys into the rotation. They had Aldridge last year. They lost him to the retirement. He's back now. They get Patty Mills. He's supposed to be predominantly the 6th man, which he still is, but also now losing Kyrie, that kind of, messes his minutes up in a certain way. Then they got Javion Carter, who's god awful, and I hate that he gets minutes, but they continue to play him. We have the rookies that we tried to play a little bit here and there. So there's a lot of different, minutes going on. Claxton's been out for a couple of days now with a non-COVID illness. So that's also been a little interesting. And Blake Griffin can't hit threes. So that's been interesting too. But I mean, this team is still really good. That's really my takeaway. Harden's playing himself into shape. You're like literally every game watching him. He gets better usually by the quarter. He didn't look good in the first half of the Atlanta game. He only had 3 points. He had shot pretty much only 3 times. He finishes the game. He has like 5 3-pointers, like 13 assists. And this is a team that in January, when I think Kyrie Irving's going to be coming back, if the league is still doing what the league is now, where they're not calling those fouls, those ticky-tack fouls, Kyrie Irving's going to be a better player than when he left, because Kyrie Irving's best skill is like, he's like Kobe-esque, where you see him take this stupid, ridiculous shot that you're like, there is absolutely no way that's going in. And it doesn't even touch anything. It just sinks straight through the net. He is one of the toughest basket getters that you can possibly watch. And that's what he does best. And they're about to add that to a team who right now is 22nd in the NBA in scoring, top 7 in defense. Something that is so interesting about the Nets this year that absolutely nobody is talking about. Top 7 in defense. I think like top 2 in like paint defense. We are 22nd in offense. Once Durant is off the court, second best scorer on the team is probably LaMarcus Aldridge right now.
Yeah,
and that's
fair.
tough. That's tough.
We'll see if the Nets have to address the buyout market like they did last season.
Yeah.
Good old Brooklyn.
Don't have any room.
I know. They're going to be a championship contender, let's be honest, and most likely going to make it if they do get Kyrie Irving back. But we'll have to wait and see until January or maybe sooner if Kyrie wants to get vaccinated.
One thing that I'm super interested in, Kyrie made a big deal about him sitting out, was about not about the vaccination. It was about workers being mandated to be vaccinated and how that wasn't fair and how he wanted to be in solidarity with those people. Well, if Eric Adams is coming into office and is going to work and change those mandates, technically Kyrie should either get vaxxed and come back early, or, I mean, I don't see why when January rolls around, he doesn't get vaccinated. But maybe he'll pull an Aaron Rodgers and say he's immunized. So we'll see.
We'll see if you can convince him, Jesse. I know you've DM'd him probably 1,000 times on Instagram, but
always.
Let's move along to the West Coast and the Los Angeles Lakers, another roller coaster season. LeBron year 19. I totally forgot Russell Westbrook was on this team and Carmelo as well. But the big names, they are averaging all the points, and then there's everybody else. AD averaging 25 points per game, as we pretty much expected him to. LeBron 24.8, Carmelo at 16.5, and Russell with 19.4 points per game. They've beat bad teams and lost to good teams. So, what are we thinking about the Lakers season?
I think that they've doubled down on something that LeBron has been probably asking them to do for a while, with getting in veterans who he trusts, at least knows, have been in situations where when it comes down to it in the playoffs, they've been there before and they act like they've been there before. So obviously at the top of the list is Carmelo Anthony in terms of being in a primetime game and being that guy. He's going to hit big shots all season. I'm not going to tell you he's going to average 20-plus points. I don't even know if he can keep up his current pace. But off the bench, he's going to hit big shots consistently. And Westbrook is going to get you there for the first 3 quarters. The last game last night that they played was the most impressive game that I've seen them put together, even though they narrowly escaped it. It was,
and we have to say they were playing against the Houston Rockets.
Absolutely.
That game had no business being that close.
And it's still, to me, it was still impressive the way that they have their roles kind of settling themselves out. Westbrook gets you there through 3 quarters. LeBron takes over in the 4th quarter. LeBron took all of the shots for the team basically in the 4th quarter. That's how it should be. It's him or AD in the 4th. And LeBron has to be primary ball handler in the second half, 4th quarter as well. That's a huge thing. But Westbrook's going to get you there. Westbrook will give you 20 points all season long and create shots for other people. I like some of the moves that they made, but I'm not surprised that they've been so inconsistent. You barely beat the baby Rockets. I understand, but it's to me, they're still working it out. They're going to figure it out. And I still like the Lakers to be competing for the Western Conference Finals, if not representing the West when it comes down to it.
I mean, I don't know how far I can trust this team in the playoffs, the way that they're built now. I also don't know what their injury report is going to look like in the playoffs and whether that's going to have Anthony Davis on it or not. I love the Melo signing. I think that's great. I think the Malik Monk signing is also great, very, very underrated. He's been a fantastic get that I think anybody, as soon as he got out of Charlotte, was going to see that they were kind of limiting him in his role. But they're riding the Westbrook roller coaster. And as a fan of Westbrook through multiple years, through multiple seasons, I was one of the biggest supporters of his MVP year. You got to accept Russell Westbrook's faults as well. And maybe LeBron and Anthony Davis can step up for that because, as Douglas alluded to, Russell Westbrook can keep you in games all the way through the first 3 quarters. He tends to lose you them in the 4th. He likes to shoot a lot of shots that he doesn't make. He likes to think he is a lot better shooter than he is. And maybe we like to continue to think that as his regression continues, we said it in Houston, Westbrook's not taking those shots. He understands. He understands that he can't make those shots. But then he always regresses and starts to do it again. So I'm really interested to see how this roller coaster is going to go with Westbrook, Davis, and LeBron, because they're 3 just physical players. None of them are great shooters. The best shooter out of them is LeBron James. When your best shooter and your big 3 is LeBron James, you're like, that's spacing. How does that work? But they might be able to just brute force you into, a muddy game that if they're not calling the fouls the way that they used to, it could work. It has potential. I'm really going to be interested to see what moves, they make, if any, because this team doesn't have much depth. Despite the Carmelo Anthony and the Malik Monk signing, that's pretty much their depth. They're giving DeAndre Jordan legit minutes. DeAndre Jordan didn't get legit minutes last year from the Nets, and the Nets played Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot, who might be the worst player in the NBA. And I'm not joking when I say that. He didn't even
get minutes on the Knicks. He barely got minutes with them too.
Nope. But they started DeAndre for multiple games and tried to make it work throughout the preseason. Dwight's going to be Dwight, and he'll be good in the playoffs for you for maybe 10 to 12 minutes. But this team depth-wise, you want to talk about a team that needs to hit the buyout market when it happens, it's the Lakers big time, because they don't have the guys' depth, even though they're such an old team.
I would pull the plug on the Avery Bradley experiment as soon as possible as well.
That's another guy. He's not what he was. And I think he can have these stretches similar to, I think a very streaky player. Like some people are like, if he's a really good defender for stretches. There are games that he just gets cooked. There's things where I don't think a championship level team or a team that wants to compete can legitimately put Avery Bradley out there as a backup who is taking legit minutes. And this is where we're seeing the Russell Westbrook trade hurt them. They don't have Kuzma. They don't have Harrell. They don't have Caldwell Pope. That is all of their depth. It's in Washington. And as we've seen, that's led Washington to be a pretty good regular season team so far.
Yeah, the talent is playing well. in Washington. But nevertheless, it is very early on in the NBA season, so we'll see. We'll reassess in a couple of months, maybe after Christmas, Jesse. Well, of course, our
Thanksgiving.
fearless leader, Justin Valentovic, predicting that by New Year's Eve, the Knicks, Heat, and Wizards will still hold the 1, 2, and 3 seeds in the NBA. Chris, I know I see your face on that one. It is kind of funny, but Chris, thank you for taking time out of the day to hop on with us. We will definitely be having you on again soon. I know MLB offseason stuff is going to be starting along with NFL. That never stops. So thank you all for listening. Please follow us on all our socials, and we'll see you in the next episode.